Good evening. How is everybody? Fine? Everybody awake? Did everybody take a nap this afternoon? Yes. Oh, man. Did anybody need a sheet? I made some sheets. Tonight we're going to look at the word courage. Does anybody have courage? This means yes. This means no. Some? What do you think of when you see the word courage? Brave. Oh, you're thinking of me, right? Yeah. Brave. Okay, what else do we think of? Soldiers. Okay, we think of soldiers. What else? The Wizard of Oz. Yeah. The Cowardly Lion, Lions and tigers and bears, oh my. What does courage mean? Doing something you're afraid to do. The ability to do something that frightens one. Also, standing your ground for right when everything or everyone else is wrong. That's my wife. She's always afraid to tell me when I'm wrong. Isn't that all wives, though, men? Sorry, you don't have to shake your head. Strength in the face of pain or grief. That one's hard, isn't it? Sometimes it's hard to have courage when you have pain or when you've lost a loved one. I never thought about having courage until I looked this up. And I thought about, just recently, about 2 years ago, my grandfather passed away. And my grandma wanted me to get up and read the story of their love at the funeral. And she's like, can you do that? Do you have enough courage to get up there and do that? And I was like, courage? Can I get through it without crying? Can I get through it without thinking of who we're not going to have? But courage. Facing something or someone you're afraid of. Now, Wednesday night I asked, who here is afraid of anything? And everybody kind of had a fear. I really liked it because someone said snakes. And as I said before, I'm deathly afraid of snakes. Never forget, I was at the car lot working one day. And I was showing a car to a guy, and I look over beside the building and thought there was a piece of rubber, like a little cut piece of a tire. So I was like, well, I better pick that up and get it. As I went to pick it up, it slithered off. I literally jumped back about 5 foot. And that guy goes, are you terrified of snakes? I said, if you hadn't been in my way, I'd have been running. I was going to be gone. And he just looked at me and laughed. So later that afternoon, I am going about my business and I get a text message. And it's this guy, and he sent me a picture. He said, I killed a copperhead today in the barn, and it was a picture of all these little baby snakes coming out. Needless to say, I had nightmares for a week. Like you can probably attest to that, I fight snakes in my sleep. But courage. Courage is the exact opposite of being afraid. We all have fears, but courage is facing those fears. Being afraid means a feeling of fear or anxiety. Who here has been afraid of something? We'll ask that question again. What are we afraid of? Besides snakes and spiders and lions and tigers and bears. What are we afraid of? Failure. That's a big one right there. Everybody's afraid of failure. Afraid of doing something and absolutely, miserably failing at it. I was afraid of college. Your very first day in college, you're a freshman. You go from being a senior, the big dog, to now you're the little runt. And if you ever knew me in college, I was the little runt. I was literally 108, 115 pounds. So I was very, very small. So here I am walking in with all these big dudes. And my very first class was a history class. And I was the only freshman in there. So I was a little nervous. And come to find out, I ended up tutoring half the class. And along the way, I barely made a D in that class. And the professor's like, you tutor half these people, they're all passing, and you're making a D. What's the deal? I said, I don't understand your test. I can't do it. I read it and I freak out. But I understand the material. So he turned around, he set me down, and he read to me. He asked me the question in my own words, and I was able to verbatim repeat the answer back. He's like, you just passed with A. But I could not. I was afraid of his test. And I don't know if it was because of the wording or whatnot, but I was afraid. Afraid of failing. Worried that something undesirable will occur or be done. Now, has anybody ever had that happen? You did something and you were expecting this and something undesirable happened? Unexpected outcome? That was my thoughts of today, just to be honest. We have 2 sick ones at home. So right after church, Letha had made lunch. That way I could come in, eat lunch. We'd do the dishes. I'd sit down. I'd make my notes out for tonight. And it would all just go right along pretty smooth. We eat lunch. And then we're sitting there, and her parents had said, hey, we'll come watch the girls. That way Letha can go to church with you. And y'all can worship together. We said, great. And Letha said, we need to have supper for them. Because they can't eat mushrooms, so they can't eat what we had. I said, how about a crock pot of chili? It sounds good. We didn't have anything for it. We had some stuff, but not all of it. So I ran to Walmart, grabbed some stuff, come back. It's now about 2 o'clock. I'm like, okay, got plenty of time. She said, well, I'm going to go jump in the shower real quick. That way I'm ready. I said, okay, good. And I was starting to freak out a little bit at that point in time. She comes back out. We have a water line busted in the bathroom. Oh, no. So I turn around. I go back to Lowe's. Get back home about 3:15 now. And I'm looking at all the mess in the kitchen. So I freak out a little bit. So finally, about 4 o'clock, everything was done. Everything was put back together. Showers were taken. And I could sit down and really think about what tonight was. So something undesirable. Unwilling or reluctant to do something for fear of the consequences of failure. Or anxious about the well-being or safety of someone or something. Sometimes we plan on doing something big, and then all of a sudden somebody gets hurt. We took a lot of college students one time to a retreat up to Lake Francis up in Crossville, Tennessee. It's owned by 2 gymnasts, and it's a real nice gymnastics camp. They have this bouncy floor. They have this big padded area that you can run and jump into a trampoline into it. And then we wanted to bond them together because at this point in time, we had the outsiders, those not from Cookeville, and then we had those from Cookeville that had lived here all their life. And they split. You had the out-of-towners and you had the in-towners. So we said, we got to do something to bring these 2 groups together. So what better way than to put them on a ropes course, 30 foot in the air. So we got this great idea, and then it starts to snow. Needless to say, everybody stayed safe. We did make it back, but there was that scared, that part of being afraid that they might get hurt that we had to overcome. But who in the Bible can you think of that had courage? Daniel. Daniel had courage, didn't he? He was told not to pray for how many days? Anybody remember? I wished I had some of the Bible Bowl kids here. It was 30 days. They made this decree that you could not worship any god except their God for 30 days. Or else you got thrown into a pit of lions. That's courage, isn't it? He went home as his custom 3 times that day to pray. And they knew it. They knew that was his custom. So they were standing by his window, waiting. He had courage. Who else? David had courage. He's seen Goliath, and everybody was afraid. And he said, who is he that he could stand against the army of the living God? That's right. Courage to stand. That's true. Anybody else? Abraham. Abraham had lots of courage, didn't he? Very first thing we hear of Abraham is at 70 years old, he's told to get up and get out of this country and go to a land that I will show you. He says, I'm not going to tell you where. I'm just going to show you where. That'd be hard. That'd be like us taking off to go, let's say, to Kalamazoo, Michigan, without GPS. Just hoping that we might have the foreknowledge of we're going to go north some way. Tonight I want us to open up your Bibles to Exodus. We're going to look at 3 unexpected people who showed courage. And this may sound strange because sometimes we don't think of courage by anybody. We think of big, burly men, soldiers, somebody that has stood the test of time. But I want to take 2 unexpected people and 1 expected person. But we first look at the Hebrew midwives, found in Exodus chapter 1. Starting in verse 15, it says, Then the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, of whom the name of one was Sapphira, and the name of the other Puah. And he said, When do you do the duties of a midwife for the Hebrew women, and see them on their birth stools? If it is a son, then you shall kill him. If it is a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared God, and did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the male children alive. So the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said to them, Why have you done this thing, and saved the male children alive? And the midwives said to Pharaoh, Because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, for they are lively, and give birth before the midwives come to them. Therefore God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and grew very mighty. And so it was, because the midwives feared God, that he provided households for them. So Pharaoh commanded to all his people, saying, Every son who is born you shall cast into the river, and every daughter shall live. Can you imagine being a Hebrew midwife? The king comes to you and says, Listen, I know you're going to help these women give birth, but if you see a male child, I want you to kill it right there. End of story. But if it's a daughter, let them live. Because pretty soon, us Egyptian men are going to need wives of our own. But if it's a male, kill them. Throw them into the river. But they feared God. They knew the consequences. The king could have had them killed. The king could have had them thrown into prison. They could have been run out of the country, forced to starve, or many other things could have happened to these midwives. But they had courage to stand up to the Pharaoh and let these kids live. Sometimes we're asked to do something, and we have a little bit of nervous apprehension. Anybody ever been asked to do something and had a little apprehension about it? What was it? Anybody got an example they could share with us? I had the ability, I had the fun time of being the mascot at Tennessee Tech. I had a little bit of fun when I was in college. But I'll never forget, we got to the end of the basketball season. We were doing fairly well, and we had OVC tournament coming. And I had another guy that was mascot with me. We traded off. He said, I'll tell you what, I want to go do the OVC tournament. And if we get past the OVC tournament, you go and do whatever tournament we get to. If it's the NCAA, you get to go and be mascot there, or if it's the NIT. Because he didn't figure much that we'd get past the OVC tournament. He wanted to go and have fun and have this trip. So I said, okay, that sounds good. We lost in the OVC tournament, but we got invited to the NIT tournament. And along the way, they played 4 different games in 4 different cities. So in one of the first games, we went to Ohio for one game. But I'll never forget, I got to go to Yale University, to be the mascot. And we walk in there, and this place is huge. Of course, I'm used to the Hooper Evelyn. That's no big thing. But Yale's basketball arena is about 3 times that size. And you look around and you start, ooh, at least I'm going to have a mask on and nobody will know it's me. But I had a little bit of fear. And then turned around, we won. And he goes, hey, I'm doing the next game. I said, no, that wasn't the deal. And then we get to actually go to the temple there in Memphis and play at Memphis. And even more people there. But it took courage to get up in front of all these people and, per se, act stupid. And I'll never forget, I tried to do the cheer with them, TTU. Well, they didn't catch on until after the U. So they thought UTT, and then they're like, you misspelled it. No, I didn't. Y'all are just too slow. But these midwives could have had their lives taken from them, but they showed courage against Pharaoh and kept them alive. The second unexpected person is Moses' mom. She knew the consequences here. She had a baby boy. And I am going to assume that she was much like Jeffrey's mom, because Jeffrey told us one of the first lessons that, oh, you're so beautiful, is to build him up. That's like all parents. We tell our kids that they're beautiful. They're gorgeous. I tell that to Letha every day. What do I say? How do I answer the phone? Hello, beautiful. I answer the phone every time that way. Or, hey, gorgeous. But we try to build each other up. But it says, and a man of the house of Levi went and took as a wife of a daughter of Levi. So the woman conceived and bore a son. And when she saw that he was a beautiful child, she hid him 3 months. She's seen a beautiful child, a beautiful baby boy, knowing that at this point in time, this baby boy should have been killed. Should have been thrown in the river, is what it says. But she went and hid him for 3 months. That takes courage. You ever tried to hide something from your parents? I'll be the first. Yeah, several of us. We've all tried to hide something from our parents. My brothers are telling on me now that I'm married and out of the house. And they're married and out of the house because they know they can't get in trouble. My brothers told my parents, hey, he hid some flying squirrels in his bedroom for a week. Somebody had some real cute little flying squirrels, and I thought they were cool. And I wanted one, and Mom and Dad said no. So I did the right thing and got them anyway and kept them hidden. But I knew I couldn't do that forever. So I gave them back. But she hid her son for 3 months. And then when time came that she couldn't hide him anymore, she made a basket and lined it inside and outside with pitch and put him right there in the bulrushes by the river, so that when Pharaoh's daughter come out to bathe in the river, she would find him. And she left her daughter to kind of watch over. Moses' sister kind of watched over. And when Pharaoh's daughter came out, and she said, look, a baby boy. She goes, hey, we can go get a Hebrew woman to nurse this child for you. Okay, do that. And I'll pay her the wages. So she raised Moses until it was time to wean him and give him to the Pharaoh. So then we see that she had courage. Knowing that he should have been killed, she had courage to stand up and save her son. Our last person we're going to look at is Moses. Now, sometimes we don't think of Moses as having a whole lot of courage, do we? Especially his early life don't show it, does it? But we see that later on, as he's raised in Pharaoh's house, he walks out and he sees an Egyptian taskmaster beating one of the Hebrew people. And it says, and he looked left and he looked right, and when he seen no one was looking, he slew the Egyptian taskmaster and hid him in the sand. And then later on, we see that he walks around and he sees two of his own countrymen fighting amongst themselves. And he goes up to them saying, stop, don't do this. They just kind of looked at him and said, what are you going to do? You're going to kill us too? So he knew that he'd been found out and he had to run away. He did the only thing he thought was courageous enough and ran and hid. So he flees to Midian. There he finds a wife and a father-in-law. And it picks up in chapter 3. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the back of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in the flame of a fire from the midst of a bush. So he looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, and the bush was not consumed. Okay. Can you picture this in your mind? You're walking in the middle of this open field, and you see a fire. You see a bush caught on fire. We've all seen fires, right? Everybody? This means yes, this means no. But we've seen fire, and this is my favorite time of the year because we have bonfires. I like that smell. I like to roast hot dogs and marshmallows over an open fire. But he looks, and this bush is not being consumed. Then Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why this bush does not burn. So when the Lord saw that he turned aside to look, God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Now, anybody ever been caught off guard by somebody's voice? You walk into a room, you don't see anybody, but then there's a voice going, Hey, how you doing? You jump and you look. I know one night at VBS we did this skit. We actually showed this skit. We had a guy hidden, and he had a microphone and a big speaker. And Moses is walking through the children, walking through the crowd, and they've got a little bush burning. And all of a sudden this big loud voice comes across on the speaker on the PA going, Moses, Moses. And every kid in the room jumped, just like some of y'all just did right now. But he looked aside. He's like, I got to see why this bush does not burn. And then the voice of God calls to him, calling him by name. I don't know about you, but I think I would be feeling fear right there. I think I would be afraid. This burning bush knows my name. But not only does this burning bush know my name, he tells me something that I'm going to have to do. I want you to go back to Egypt. And I want you to tell Pharaoh to let my people go. That's fear. God, excuse me for 1 minute. Take a minute here. You want me to go where? Back to Egypt? Back where I killed somebody and people know that I did it because I ran away. You want me to go back and tell Pharaoh to let my people go? Well, Moses has the same idea. In verse 11 it says, But Moses said to God, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? And God said, I will certainly be with you, and this shall be a sign to you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. Okay, I'm hearing you. You want me to go back to Egypt? You want me to tell Pharaoh to let my people go? But who am I? And God says, I will be with you. But then Moses said to God, Indeed, when I come to the children of Israel and say to them, The God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they say to me, What is his name? What shall I say then? He's really starting to be afraid. How are they going to know who sent me? What do I call you? Do I say the burning bush sent me? Because then I just look like a crazy person. God says to Moses, I am who I am. So tell him I am sent me. Moses is like, okay. So now he's really going to start trying to come up with some ideas of how to get out of this. His courage is really going down. Then Moses answered and said, But suppose they will not believe me or listen to my voice. Suppose they say the Lord has not appeared to you. He's really trying to get every excuse under the book out. So God tells him, Is that a staff in your hand? Throw it down. So Moses throws it down and it becomes a serpent. There's that snake that I'm afraid of. He said, Now pick it up by the tail and it'll become a rod again. Okay. So he does it and he's like, okay, I see that. I see your power. I know you're sending me. But suppose they won't believe that. Well, stick your hand in your tunic and pull it out. And he pulls it out and it's leprous. Can you imagine that? First you throw a staff down and it becomes a snake. Now you put your hand in, you pull it out and it's leprous. Now put your hand back in and pull it back out and it's clean. Okay. Well, Lord, but I am not eloquent of speech. Since I'm scared, I've got a stuttering problem. I'm not eloquent I cannot speak. He says, isn't your brother Aaron coming? Use him. He'll be your mouthpiece. On and on and on, he was showing that he was afraid. And God kept trying to give him courage all the way through this. Till he finally relents and he goes to Pharaoh. And he shows up on Pharaoh's door and he says, hey, the Lord has sent me to tell you to let my people go. He finally had the courage built. And we see on and on and on. That's what the kids are studying right now in Bible classes. We're talking about the 10 plagues. But on and on now, Moses has courage. He's finally realized God is with me. So we see that through 3 different people, just in a short amount of time, God instills courage. And that makes me think about today. I want you to close your eyes for a minute. Most everybody has seen the movie Forrest Gump, correct? Jeremiah told me Friday night, or actually Andrea did Friday night, that Jeremiah was so excited that Friday night was the best church night ever because he got to watch a movie. So I was trying to live up to this expectation of the best church night ever and find a movie clip to go with this. Unfortunately, I'm sorry I couldn't find one. But I was thinking about what would tie in with this. And I thought of the scene from Forrest Gump. He has gotten into battle. He's in Vietnam. And Jenny had told him, if you ever get in a firefight, just run. Run, Forrest, run. So he gets in a firefight and he takes off running. And he runs so fast and so far that he runs away from everybody. And he realizes he's all alone. And then he thinks back about his friend Bubba. And in the movie, you know, he screams, Bubba. And then he runs back into the jungle to look for Bubba. And along the way, he finds somebody else. That's kind of like Moses. Moses has run away from Egypt. And God's telling him, go back for Bubba. Go back for my people. Because I want you to lead them to the promised land. He instills courage. God showed him the power over all the external factors that would stop him by throwing that staff on the ground and turning into a snake. Then he showed him that I'm going to be with you even with your health, because he reaches in and he affects his hand. He affects his health and shows that I have power over that too. I'm going to give you courage. Then he says, I'm going to give you enough courage to speak. I'm going to give you somebody that will help you. And that's what he does for us today. He gives us courage by helping us get through our external factors. There may be people here that can talk to somebody that other people can't talk to because we have a different influence in our life. Mark's a counselor. We have some nurses. We have some doctors. I know we've got some bankers in the building. We've got school teachers, principals. We have, unfortunately, a used car dealer. We have babysitters. We have child care workers. We have counselors. Everybody has a different way to affect other people. You can use those talents if you have courage to use them. We all have a different influence. Everybody has a way of talking to other people. Some come out boldly, and some come out behind the scenes and help others. It may not be doing something flashy like preaching a sermon. It may be taking somebody food. It may be stopping to help somebody on the side of the road with their tire. It may be inviting people to a picnic here and somebody saying, I need help. I need prayers. Mark told us about the man that came in and wrote a prayer request saying he needed help. He needed prayers of encouragement. That takes courage. And each one of us as Christians can have courage because there's not an end for the Christians. We have a glorious hope of eternal life. And that's what gives us courage, should give us courage. Moses knew that if Pharaoh let his people go, he was going to get to go to the promised land. Another guy told me the story when he was at Freed Hardeman. They had all planned this big mission trip. They were going to go to Haiti, and they were going to be there for 3 weeks on this mission trip. And one guy was completely terrified of flying on a plane. And he got all the way up to right before they were at the airport. And he's like, I am not going. I am done. I made it this far. I am done. This is as far as my mission trip will let me go. And the guy was like, you can do this. You're here. And he said, no, I can't do it. They said, have courage. Have faith. They said, think about it this way. If you get on the plane and we fly to Haiti and we land, guess what? We're in Haiti doing a mission trip. And if we get on a plane and we fly and then we fall to our death, there's no better way to go than to be trying to go on a mission trip, right? Instant ticket. And the guy finally relented, and now he's a missionary in foreign countries. So, do you have courage? Maybe not. Sometimes it takes courage to come forward, to ask for prayers. Sometimes it takes courage to step out. When I was baptized, I was terrified of going in front of everybody to be baptized. I got home that Wednesday night. I went up to my room, opened my Bible, and I realized sin equals death. It says, for the wages of sin is death. And I was sitting there going, if I died and I'm not baptized, I'm done. So I went back downstairs and I said, Mom, Dad, I got to be baptized. I couldn't do it earlier, but I need to do it tonight. So they called Ken Burton. It was 9:30. He said, I'll meet you there in 30 minutes. We called my aunts, my uncles, my grandparents, and we got to the church building about 10 o'clock on a Wednesday night. The invitation is always open, no matter whether it's 10 o'clock at night or it's right now, or even if it's 2 o'clock in the morning. The invitation is always open. We're here to help you. As we've said, this is a place of peace. Maybe there's fear or anxiety, but courage is overcoming that fear. Maybe there's anxious about the well-being or the safety, or a reluctant feeling of fear to do something. But face something that you're afraid of. Face someone you're afraid of. Have courage. If there's anything we can do for you, please come as we stand and as we sing.